Hello and welcome back to another episode of Combustion RC. On today's episode, we're going to be getting into bag C and bag D of our Tekno EB48 2.2 kit. This is going to be where we get to actually finally put our front and rear gearboxes into a housing, and then those housings will eventually go on the chassis. But it looks like we're actually going to be building the front and rear ends completely first and then bolting them on, which is kind of a cool concept. Usually you bolt everything on and then start putting things together with the chassis. So I'm excited to kind of see how this goes. If this is one of your first times with us, caffeinate and hydrate. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and slice open and get into bag C here. All right, so now that we've got everything laid out, I'm gonna go ahead and tilt you down and let's go through this and start getting this build going. So right here we have our diff casing. We have our blue thread lock, which you're going to need for the set screw that goes into this metal outdrive cup for the center shaft. We have these little standoffs. We have our pinion gear that's going to connect to our ring gear right here, like so. Our shims, our bearings, and we have 3 different screw sizes along with the set screw. So as you can see here in our instruction manual, we've got C1, C2, C3, and C4. You have your 2.5 by 6, which is these little guys right here. These are countersunk flatheads. 4 by 10s, button head screws, that's these big guys right here. And then you have 6 M3 by 14 cap head screws, which are these guys right here. You also have the M5 by 4 millimeter set screw, 2 5 by 14 by 5 bearings, and then of course your 13 by 16 shims, as well as your 5 by 7 shim. So these are 0.1 millimeters thick, and this is 0.2 millimeters thick. So remember those, so that if you do have to purchase other ones down the road, you know that you got a 0.1 and a 0.2. Okay, so we're going to need a 2.5 for those big guys, 1.5 for those little guys there, 2.5 for that, and a 2.5 for that as well. You've ever built some other 8 scale kits, you know that you would actually need a 3 millimeter for some of these on other 8 scales as well. You do not need a 3 millimeter on this one. I'm not sure if the nitro kit has 3 millimeters. A lot of times your engine mounts are 3 millimeters. So if you don't have a 3 millimeter hex wrench and you're doing a nitro kit, you might want to pick one up. I'll have to look and see for sure, but that's a possibility. And also this is our front gearbox. Remember, if you watched my last video, I said if you have a silver Sharpie, make sure you write 7K on here so that you know it's your front. I actually just set mine in a completely different spot so that I knew it was my front one. That way I didn't get it mixed up with my 2 that were 5K. All right, so the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to need the large piece of the housing. We're going to need both of our bearings. We're going to need our pinion gear, need our little shim, our outdrive cup, and our set screw. So that's the first things we're going to need. Again, like I said, you're going to need a 2.5 and a 1.5. So we're going to have those ready to go. And we're going to need grease. For the grease on this, I'm going to be using the Sticky Kicks red grease. This is actually a specific use high temperature grease for ring and pinion gears. So this is going to go on your pinion gear and your ring gear because these get pretty warm. So you're not going to need it just yet. It doesn't look like, doesn't want any grease on here, but we are going to need our thread locker for a set screw, which I'm going to go ahead and actually put that in right now, just not tight. How much thread lock did they give us? Is it just a little bit in there? Ooh, that's like a Permatex thread gel. That's very nice. I like that. I like that a lot. Get the excess drip off in the thread there, and then just get that down in there. But not all the way. There we go. Now you do want to have a piece of paper towel handy because you are going to have excess. So go ahead and grab a piece of paper towel. And if you get these, we actually found out that the Brawny ones come in quarters, so you don't waste as much. And just dab at the edge there and just get off that excess. We can get it wiped off more once we get it done. But your bearings are going to go in. If you notice, the shim goes on the outside with the outdrive cup. So we're going to put this bearing in here first, like so. Put it in like that, and then just give it a good push. And then our other bearing goes on the outside of that same hole, like that. You take your pinion gear right here. I know it's confusing that this is called a pinion gear as well as the small gear that goes on the end of your motor. This is just an angled pinion gear, which is not sure why they're called the same thing, but you know, I don't ask too many questions like that. So then we're going to put our shim on the outside. I'm going to slide our drive cup down. Make sure that your set screw is on the flat spot side. And then we're going to, looks like it doesn't say to make sure it's like out very far or anything. So we're just going to put it all the way on. Let's make sure it's facing the direction I want it to so that I can hold it in place. There we go. And then tighten her down. And if you just want to make sure that it's on good, just give it a good pull. As long as it doesn't move, you're good. I just usually give it a little snug just to be sure. Then you can wipe off your excess blue goo. And there we go. See, no excess to sling anywhere once we get moving. And there is your pinion gear set in there with your center drive, out drive cup. So then we're going to set that down. You're going to grab your what's this called? And then you're going to grab your differential. Make sure to note the orientation. You want this to make sure that it's in the same orientation as this. So you don't put it in this way is what I'm saying. Okay? Put it in with it. If you're holding it facing you, because I'm sure this video is probably flipped backwards. If you're holding it facing you, the ring gear right here should be to your left hand. Okay? Wedding ring, left hand. Ring gear. Got it? Okay. Just in case this is flipped backwards, make sure that you're on the correct side. All right. So the reason I just pulled that back out is you want to make sure you get your diff shims on here as well. So these here are going to go, looks like they want you to put both of them on one side, but it says may not be required. Check your fitment. Well, we're going to put them both on, and then we're going to see. What it means by that is, if you need both of them, they should fit snugly down underneath this plastic ring. And this is just to help with plastic machining. Plastic machining can sometimes get a little funky, and you sometimes get that slop in there. Now if you see, there is no room to get both in there. So go ahead and pull one off, and we're going to see if it even needs one. I think I may have gotten lucky and got a kit that didn't even need one, because I can't even get 1.1 millimeter shim to get down in there. Oh, there it is. All right, now, is it tight or is it not? Nope, she's good. All right, so we don't need this one, so we can save this one for a later date, okay? Save this aside. You might need it again later, because this will eventually wear in and you'll need to put that second one on there. So if you don't have a parts bin to put these in, I highly recommend these little J Concepts. They have screws on the bottom, so I can dump this over and I don't have to worry about it at all, because this is screwed in dividers so that nothing gets mixed up in here. So I'm going to go ahead, since I have an empty slot right here, I'm going to go ahead and put that shim in there. And if you see, I got little screws and stuff in here and nothing gets mixed up at all. It's fantastic. I absolutely love them. They are definitely worth the price. All right, so there's our diff shims. Now, if you notice here, we do need grease, and then we need our top cap, and then 2 of these cap head screws here. So now here it says apply a small amount of black grease to the ring gear teeth. So if you're using what comes in the kit, you're going to use the black grease, and you're not going to go excessive with it. You're just going to apply it just a little bit like so, and then you're just going to run it through. And you're going to try to get it to spread, and if you're not getting full teeth spread, just add some more and just run it through again. Just keep running through until all your teeth are well greased. See, I got a few dry teeth there, so we're gonna add a little there, and there's another spot where there were some dryish ones right there. So we're gonna add a little there. We're just gonna run it through again until we get a nice even coat. Got some excess sticking off, so I'll just put it right there. And you're just gonna spin and spin, just because you want to make sure it's nice and evenly coated on there. So that's a good coating right there. So every tooth has about the same amount on there. And it's okay if you get some over here. That's actually not a bad thing, because that'll help keep it on your ring gear. When it gets on there, it rubs on the ring gear or the pinion gear as well, which will help move it around as it wears in. And once this is running, this stuff gets pretty warm and gooey. So it's not a bad thing to have just a touch too much. And then, you know, just like last time, you're gonna get a little bloody looking stuff setting around places. So let's just go ahead and set that on there. All right, so then you're gonna get this on here, make sure it's the right orientation. Don't do what I just did. And then just make sure you're not pinching or kinking that shim that's in there, okay? You wanna make sure that you get a nice fitment on both sides. So I usually try to kind of wiggle on the shim side first and then pop over the bearing on the other side. Now, if you're on good, you shouldn't have any side-to-side slop, and it should free spin. You don't want to have any binding, because that means you're shimmed too much, and you don't want to have any slop, that means you're under shimmed. So if you have side-to-side slop, you need to add a shim in there. If it's tight, you need to take a shim out, okay? So now that that's done, we can put our top screws in here, which are 2.5 millimeter. I knew that was going to happen. Why did I do that? You can save time by not doing this by hand. You can use a screw gun. Just remember that it's going to get hot. It's going to make this extra gooey, this plastic. And also just remember that if you're using a driver, when like a screw gun driver, you can actually pinch this and cause it to buckle, which will pull this case in too tight on your ring gear, and it'll actually cause your differential to bind. And you don't want that now, fellas. You don't want to have a bound up gearbox, guys. That's a bad thing. All right, so our gearbox is done. So now it looks like we're going to add our shock tower and our standoffs. So let's go ahead and put our shock tower on first. Let's see here. Is there an orientation difference, or is this identical on both sides? This is, in fact, identical on both sides. So it doesn't matter which direction you put it on. It is going to be the same either way. So this is going to slide on. You can see right there, there's a hole. It's just going to set right down on there like so. This one, it doesn't matter if you use a screw gun or a hand driver, because you're not going to pinch the aluminum too tight. You may need to pull the aluminum off just a little bit to get the screws started, because sometimes they do that. Sometimes they do that, you know. So we're going to start it out here like so. And then because I'm feeling a little bit lazy, I'm going to go ahead and get my bit for my driver. That's a 2.5. I left it in my bag, and we're going to get this going. So if you ever have speed tips, they come with a 1.5 almost always. I have never used a 1.5 speed tip because, frankly, the only thing you're using 1.5 on are typically little screws like this, your shock cap screws, and your motor pinion set screws. This is just going to make them snap in two. So I don't even know why I have a 1.5, other than the fact that it came with the kit. This here, is this my 2.5? That's the 3. So where's my 2.5? Uh-oh. All right, so I found my 2.5. It had somehow gotten underneath of my tool caddy top plate and was hiding out underneath there. So now I'll use the screw gun and just drive these here in. Now, if you notice, I'm gonna work my way around just because I don't want that to end up torquing and twisting that aluminum. I don't think it could, but you just want to be, Just better safe than sorry now, guys. Better safe than sorry. So the next thing we're going to do is put our shock standoffs on. So your screws here are going to go in the diff cup side, and our shock standoffs are going to go on the top side. Now, it says to put them on the, can't tell if it's saying middle or inner hole. It looks like it's saying middle hole. I'm going to put them on the inner hole because I just know my driving style. I prefer inner hole. I'm right-handed though, and I'd prefer to hold it like this, so that's what I'm going to do. If you have a wrench like this, the 5mm sits nicely on top of there to keep that from wiggling around, so that's really nice. So we're going to go ahead and do that. All right, so you're going to grab your 2.5, get it on the screw, and get your thread locker on here, just right on the tip, because as you thread it in, it'll seat it. We're going to go through the bottom. Remember, this screw goes in the drive cup side. You're just like, I just want to make sure it's tight. And so when you take this on there, and then just give it a little snug. Now, not too tight, guys. You don't want over tighten. Just enough. There we go. And there's that. So I'll put that up. And like I said, we're going to go ahead and take this, just wipe off any excess blue goo that may have squished out. And then we need our bottom shim with our little itty bitty guys. Now remember what I said about these 1.5s. Don't use a driver. Because if you notice, it says right here, note, do not over tighten. Don't over tighten, guys. So you're just going to put your 1.5 on there. Note your orientation. This raised center needs to face down. It's going to go on the bottom like so. The wider line side is going to go to the drive cup side. So just remember that orientation as well. The side, see how it's got a like a step over on this side, and this side doesn't have a step, it's just a line. This fat step right here goes on your drive cup side. I'm just gonna sit right down in there like so. And then these, the reason you don't over tighten these is you're going into plastic with a thin plastic. So all you're gonna do is just get it to where it's flush and right there. Just stop. Don't over tighten. Don't go crazy with it. Let's see that one more time. Just get it in there, tighten it up until you get to that point where it's almost flush. And if you notice, 2 fingers. As soon as it stops with 2 fingers, you're done. Okay? Nice flush finish right there. Just make sure you don't have any raised edges, and that's when you know you're in. And that's all the way in. So now we can continue to dab some red on the rag here. So we'll slide that up. Now we're going to go on to bag D. Now if you want to go ahead and pause your video, we're going to go ahead and cut open bag D and have everything laid out just like we did with bag C. All right, so we've got everything laid out. The one thing that I do want to mention that I haven't gone over before is if you are like me and you're using a desk like this and you're like, I don't want to get these lines from, you can see where I pulled right there and I pulled right here, and you're like, I just don't want to be cutting my desk all up. So one way you can do it too is you can actually hold your bag, put your X-Acto knife down like this, and then pull the bag across. And then you don't scratch your desk, but you still cut your bag open. Just a little tech tip for you. Since we're on to another one, I'm gonna go ahead and pull over my trusty napkin here. Gonna get our case. Now on this one, you're gonna use this guy as your out drive, this yoke. And you're gonna need your set screw. Again, you're gonna need your shim here. both bearings and your pinion gear. Just like last time, we're going to put our bearings in first. Then drop our pinion gear through. Just like so. Put our shim on. Make sure our flat spot is facing up so that we know where it's at. You're going to grab your 2.5 and your thread lock. Get that nice little bead on there. And then you're just gonna slide it on your flat spot. Make sure you're holding your stuff. Don't do what I just did. Hold it so it doesn't pop through. If you're wondering if you're on the flat spot all the way, just tighten it down until it's a little loose and give it a wobble. If it tries to turn but can't, that's when you're on your flat spot. See? Then just tighten it down all the way. Give it a good pull. If it doesn't move, you're good. Dap off your extra. And we can put our thread lock up for a little while. Alright, then we're going to go over to getting our rear differential. Which, remember, your rear is the other one with the metal. Center is the only one with the plastic gear for now. Going to do shims again. Remember what it says here, may not be required. So the first thing I'm going to do is, again, you're going to hold it with the yoke facing your left hand or out like this. And you want that ring gear to be facing your left hand if you're holding it out, or towards you if you're holding it facing to the left. We're going to put that in there. We're going to see if we get any side-to-side play, which this one has 0 side-to-side play. It is very tightly in there. There is no need for a shim on this one whatsoever. So we're going to save these shims, like I said, because this will waller out as time goes on, and you'll need those shims to make sure that diff doesn't move later. So, but that one is very well in there. It does not move whatsoever. All right, so now you're going to need your grease like we had before. You can use your black grease, or if you order one of these full kits that has all 4 greases from Sticky Kicks, like what I use. I think there's a couple other companies that have them, but I just really like the Sticky Kicks stuff. Not just because I drive for them, but just because I really like their products. I think I've said this before, but in case you haven't heard it in one of my other videos, I refuse to drive for a company that I don't believe in their products. So if you ever see me talking about something that's a company that I started driving for, the only reason they even got my application is because I believe in their products. I don't just drive for something because I just want cheaper stuff or free stuff. I only use what I trust. And you can see how that outdrive works. No, you can't. There we go. There you go. That grease is well set in there. So I'm going to take our casing cover. We're going to pop it on, just like so. Just make sure there's no wiggle wobbles. We're good there, so we don't need any shims. And then just like last time, we're going to take 2 of these cap head screws and put them in. Now I am going to do what I told you not to do last time, and I am going to use my screw gun. I'm going to show you how you can be safe. This is the way to be, This is the way to be safe when you're using the screw gun. Is start going real slow when it gets closer and leave a couple threads hanging. Don't just, pull full bore and just zoom it in there. Goodness gracious. You don't need to give it the zoomies now. Half throttle. and you can go right in. And then snug it up by hand so you don't over tighten. Once you get used to, you know, how it feels, you can start using the zoomy gun to go all the way down to tight. Just at first, when you're first starting out, don't zip, zip, zip all the way. All right, so there is our completed housing here. Now we're going to move on to the next part, which is our shock tower. And we're going to move this aside for just a moment because our shock tower wants us to go ahead and put on some other stuff first. Now, if you notice, we're going to be putting our wing mount on. Now, once you put your wing mount on, you can still reach these holes, but it gets a little difficult. So we're going to hold off on that. Okay? We're going to go ahead and take our two big guys here, our two shock standoffs. We're going to put our shock standoffs on first. Now, your shock standoffs are going to go on whichever side you want the wing to face. This is identical on both sides, so it does not matter which direction it faces. It is the same contour on both sides. Makes it very easy to build when it's the same both ways. That's nice to see. All right, and it says to put them on the middle hole again. I'm going to do, there's 5 holes here. They want the middle. I'm doing second to fully down. So I like my shocks laid over a little bit more. Just out of habit, driving style preference. Again, these are things that you'll learn as you go along, you know. What your preferences are, how you like things. What your general consensus is. Now, if it's getting too much side bite, I can always stand those up. And take away some of that. Now, get on there. What in the Sam Hill? Oh, I'm turning it. Well, there it goes. Whatever, just lay there. Do what you want to do, I guess. Now you need a couple of hands, okay? Because now you're going to need your, I'm assuming 5.5, maybe a 5. Let's see here. 5.5. So I need your 5.5 driver, just like that. 5.5. 5.5. 5.5. Along with your 2.5. And then you're going to need to hold this on here while putting this screw. Apparently we're going to set it at the higher setting because that's where it wants it, and that's where we're putting it. But it's the wrong side. You want to hold that, yep, right there like that. Higher setting. Make sure the standoffs face the wing mount. And then, while holding the screw, holding the shock tower, holding the wing mount and shock tower together and through, then you need to grow a third arm and then be able to hold those together while putting a nut on. And then, once that nut's on, you need to grab your 5.5 and just, you know, hope that they don't get, you know, they just, the things. That's what I'm saying. So you need to still hold them together. Try to make sure the holes are straight. Slide that through. Now, come on. Get in the, it's your home. Don't you want to go home? There we go. Then, do the same thing again while hoping that nothing falls apart. Sometimes you just need a few extra hands, as you know, to build these things. Or hope for the best. Now, if you notice, these aren't even tight. I'm just barely putting them on. It's because I want to get all these started first. Because I don't want nothing to just start falling apart. Bad dog. What? Get in the hole. It's fine. Everything's fine. I'm fine. I promise. I'm fine. I'm fine. Nope, probably not. All right, and you just, you know, just keep twisting until the twisting stops. If your fingers pop or your wrist pops, that's probably when it's at full torque. If the aluminum pops, well, you've gone a little too far. All right. That wasn't so bad, was it? That was easy. There's our shock tower and wing mount. Now, we get to pull the two together. All right, so first off, because I just want this on the bottom already, just get, you know, just more coverage is what I'm saying. The wide side, like I said, on the back side, it's got the little T shape. On the bottom side, it's got the big fat step. Goes to the yoke side. See here, the yoke. So that goes on like that. There we go. And then just your little 1.5. Get it started. Get it moving. And then just a little, yeah, right there. You're gonna have to get a little pressure to get it started because it is threading the hole for the first time. Right, and yeah, that seems good. Now I need 4 more. What, 4? Yep. I seem to be. I got 2. 4, right? 2, 4. Oh, that's what I forgot. Okay, let's set that down. Let's go back over here. Okay, that's the front. I need the rear. Ha, this thing. Back to this, right here. This shock tower with the wing mount. There's 2 holes right here. You need this to go through right here if you're going to use it. If you're only going to use Velcro, you don't necessarily need this. I'm going to use this though, okay? Because I'm going to use this and the Velcro. Because I don't like things falling off. The last thing you want is to be jumping through the air and the body goes flew. We're going to go ahead and do that. And because I'm feeling ridiculous, we're going to use the screw gun. We're going to hold the screw gun and the screw. We're going to hold this upside down so it wants to hang upside down. We're going to get it started like so. Now, because I don't want this to just go flying out of my hand and twisting and spinning, because, you know, I just don't feel like hanging on to it like that. We're going to stay. There we go. Yay! Pinch my finger. There we go. All right. Now that's on there. Now we have our 4 left that we can do the thing on here. Now, if you're putting it on like this, you're doing it backwards. This goes in the car, not behind the car. It's not, what I'm saying is this isn't a PTO shaft, okay, fellas? This isn't for your tractor. This goes to the, you know what I'm saying. It goes to the center. And it's going to start all 4 of them, just like we did last time. Before we do any snugging or tightening. You know, and it's about this time that your wife's going to walk in the room and go, "Quit screwing around." Yep, there we go. We got a front and we got a back. And that's bag C and bag D. Next video, we're gonna get into bags E and F, which is our rear arms and camber links. So this one's probably gonna be 4 or 5 videos now, guys. I wanna make sure I break it up enough that this one is not as chaotic as like the GFRP build that I did in 3 videos. I really liked how I broke the SC 6.4 into 5 videos. I thought that was a better process. It was easier to follow. You weren't having to sit there for 2-3 hours at a time. I mean, when I did the GFRP build, I was sitting there for 5-6 hours for each video. So I know that you guys aren't gonna wanna do that. And then you have to try to figure out where you're at in the video and you go back to it. So on this one, I'm gonna just break it up automatically right off the bat into 4 to 6 videos, depending on paint and all that. So I kind of want to try my hand at the cartoon thing where you do like the black etch lines that makes it look like it's a cartoon, like a comic book kind of thing. So comment down below if you want to see that process. I'm going to practice on that one, and if it turns out okay and you guys want to see the process on this one, we can go through it and we can try to make the cartoon look on that too. That's it for today's video. As always, keep the shiny side up or the rubber side down, and remember to stay in the groove.